Hey there, hope you're doing really, really well today, and welcome to Ask Daniel number 9, in which we're going to go over a whole bunch of questions. I want to thank everybody for sending questions in the comment section as well as emails. It really means a lot. It's really the life of this channel, and uh, as there are more questions coming in, I might be doing more of these lives, maybe 3 times a week or 4 times a week even. We'll see. Anyway, that said, before we begin, as always, nothing is medical advice to anyone, just general thoughts and comments that I hope will help anyone that's tuning in. And we will turn to the, let us turn to the comment section, actually, start there. And we are gonna hear from, this is a comment on, can't see actually which video, but it doesn't matter. It's from Karolina KP, who writes the following. Hi, Daniel. I would like to ask for your advice because I'm desperate. I've had sleep problems for 4 years, which intensified 2 months after childbirth. Previously, I only had problems with falling asleep. I slept all night. And now, apart from problems with falling asleep, I also have problems with falling asleep. And after 4 or 5 hours, wake up and I can't sleep again. I take trazodone before bed, and it only allows me to fall asleep quickly, but gives me only like 4 to 5 hours of sleep. Please can you advise me what to do? I go to bed regularly at midnight. Before bedtime, I take a pill and I wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. What should I do? I lose hope. Sad smiley. Which I said, I asked Karolina, so about 6 years ago, like, how did you sleep at that point in time? And what's your typical day like? And Karolina said the following: 6 years ago, I went to sleep around 11 p.m., get up at 7, like a normal person. Then I started to fall asleep. Now I can't sleep without the tablet. And with the tablet, I wake up after 4 or 5 hours during the day, working, taking care of my daughter. Now I go to sleep at midnight, wake up at 5, and I can't sleep. I sleep with my husband and child sleeping in another room. So a couple of things here. First of all, again, Karolina, thanks for sending these questions to us. And a very common story. You know, somebody like yourself, Karolina, maybe had some trouble falling asleep here and there, but no major things going on. And then there was kind of the stressor. You had a child, and now it's kind of like more full-blown insomnia. You're taking medications, etc. Now, you know, it doesn't seem, you know, reading this message, it doesn't come across as somebody who has like no clue why they have trouble sleeping. I think, you know, it comes across as you know that kind of the stress of having a child was the trigger. But you don't really know how to move forward. So I want to say a couple of things, which actually already said this in one of my comments, which was, you know, one thing that you have going for you is that a couple of years ago, which, you know, having trouble sleeping for years is a long time, but you can still remember a time when you slept well. That works in your favor. You know, you're the same person, you have the same brain, the same like sleep system, you know, you're breathing the same air, you're on the same planet. Nothing has changed except, you know, you're worried about your sleep, you're thinking about sleep, you're taking medications for sleep, you're paying attention to sleep, like those things that drive insomnia. Now, what should somebody like you do? Well, we're hearing in this message, it wasn't, you know, it sounds like you're going to bed at midnight and you wake up at 5. It wasn't completely clear what time you get out of bed. But I always talk about set it and forget it. Set it and forget it. I believe that's the magic bullet for insomnia. And what I mean by that, set it and forget it, is like, you know, one should set a time to go to bed, you know, set a time to get up, actually. Set a time to get up and be very strict with that and not go to bed too early. And apart from that, like shift attention completely away from sleep. So in somebody like yourself, Karolina, that sounds like, you know, I don't know exactly when you get out of bed, but let's say you are getting up at 5 and you're going to bed at midnight. That means you're only spending 5 hours in bed, which is not a long time at all. I typically tell people that, you know, 6 hours is usually good, but, you know, some people go down into 5 hours. So let's just hypothetically say that you're actually getting out of bed at 5 and you're getting to bed at midnight. That means you are setting it, you know, the set it part of the set it and forget it, you are doing, you know. So there's no problem there, which means that the next step is the forget it part, which is honestly, it is the harder part. And the first, you know, try to think about sleep, research it, you know, focus on it, trying to figure out things to do, and be like, today I'm going to do things that I enjoy. And for somebody who has done kind of the set it but struggles to forget it, I think that the next step is really like holding yourself accountable, being like, okay, today I'm going to do something that I really enjoy, and I'm going to keep tab of it. Like, did I actually do it? And the more your attention shifts away from sleep, sleep will come your way. Set it and forget it. Sleep will come your way. Now, we're going to talk more in this episode about medications, but it is really important to know that medications cannot produce sleep. They can take away kind of some worry, some anxiety that keeps you from sleeping, but they cannot produce sleep. And I want to say my general advice to people that are taking medications and struggle with sleep is like, it's hard to change two things at once. So I think it's best to like take the medication the same time every night, do the set it and forget it. And once your sleep confidence builds up again, once you find like, okay, I can sleep and you're doing it, then you can consider taking, coming off the medication. But that's my initial thoughts here. And we have a kind of live comment here from Christina Ruiz, who says, and Christina was on some kind of medication, was kind of in a desperate, kind of like sending a desperate sounding message from a couple of weeks ago. And she's now saying, I'm sleeping through the night again. By not putting so much of my time worrying about sleep seems easier said than done, but it can be done. And no more medication for sleep. That's amazing. I don't remember, Christina, what you were on. Were you taking Xanax or something like that? I think it's a pretty heavy duty like benzodiazepine, but listen to that. Comment coming in live here. I'm not worrying so much about my sleep. Seems easier said than done, but it can be done, and no more medication for sleep. Thanks. Yeah, it was Xanax. I was right. It was Xanax. Amazing, Christina. So happy for you. Well done. Karolina, I felt my answer was a little bit generic. I hope it still helps. Follow-up questions, please let me know. And when I say generic, I felt like I didn't provide anything specific, but it's because what I said, I believe in 100%. I think it's the best thing to do for everyone, really. All right. So let's move on here to another message that came in also 2 days ago. This is a comment on Talking Insomnia number 16. And this is where I talked to Alex, who has this kind of sudden awareness of being about to fall asleep. And very interesting, because Alex really felt he was like the only one. And now there's been a number of people commenting on that episode saying like, this is happening to me as well. So anyway, let's read this. I have suddenly developed this as well, exclamation mark. My husband has started a night shift, and this bout of difficulty sleeping began in the days leading up to it because I dreaded it so much. I knew that I wouldn't be able to count on him for helping during the day like I normally would. So this was a huge stressor for me. I typically develop insomnia when I know that I will be on my own and worry about compounded sleeplessness. I will lay in bed until the sun comes up, sometimes being able to fall asleep before my daughter wakes me up, and other times I don't sleep at all. The second night of the new night shift, I started to prevent myself from falling asleep once I felt it happening. It became worse the more I feared it, because I was terribly afraid that something was very, very wrong and I had lost my ability to sleep. Once I felt myself drifting off and having dream-like thoughts in my mind, it was like my brain was saying, stop, or you're not allowed to sleep, something along those lines. And I said I asked kind of how have things been going so far since your husband started doing these night shifts? And AProperLady said, the days have been difficult. I spend the majority of the day wondering how my nights will go. It's reassuring to hear that Alex is doing well. His situation sounded exactly like mine. I finally get into a relaxed state, and then I either twitch or my brain becomes aware that I'm starting to drift off and won't let me. I've even become concerned about very rare and practically impossible cause insomnia. I won't name it here, but I'm sure you can guess what I'm referring to. Haha. It has become an obsessive thought in the back of my mind, which makes sleeping almost impossible. I'm very much looking forward to your insights here. Thanks so much for sharing this, AProperLady. And there were a couple of things I want to share with you that I hope will be helpful. Number one was this one, that the insomnia that's described here is like anticipatory insomnia that a lot of people have Sunday nights or before some big event or before traveling or something like that. In this case, AProperLady is saying I hope there seems to be some glitch there. I hope we didn't lose too much, but I just talked about a proper lady's message, and she had trouble sleeping because her husband went on night shift, and she was worried about like how was her day going to be without him being there to help, and that really fed the insomnia. Now, when it comes to this like anticipatory insomnia, I believe that the key, or one of the keys, is to find evidence that what you are so afraid of may not actually happen. Meaning, a lot of people are afraid that if they don't get enough sleep, then they're not going to be able to do their jobs. But then we ask them, so how long have you done your job? Well, for many years. Have you had sleepless nights before? Yes. Have you gotten fired? No. It's like, okay, there's evidence that I can do this even on little sleep, which may not seem like, such a great thing to hear. But when you get to a point where you realize that you can do what you need to do during the day, even if you didn't sleep that much, that takes away the fear of sleep loss, which is super, super helpful. So that's what I was asking about. How have your days been? And then a proper lady replied, well, I spent kind of the whole day wondering what my night is going to be like. And my thinking here is that it sounds like you are, very worried about your night, but that you are doing what you have to do during the day, which means that kind of the fear that triggered this, which was like, I'm not going to be able to function without my husband, or I can't get stuff done without my husband. Maybe you have evidence already that that's not the case, that you can do the things you have to do even without the support of your husband during the day. And you can let that decrease your fear of losing sleep. And when you lose that fear of losing sleep, you sleep much better. That was kind of one thing I wanted to share. And the second one was these jerks as you're about to fall asleep, the sudden awareness, etc. Just as as in Alex's case, he was so successful because he did nothing. He didn't try to figure them out, didn't try to fight them or like anything like that. It's same thing as with insomnia in general. The more attention you pay to them, the worse, the more you get. So it's not easy. It's again easy said than done. But the key is not to pay attention. And again, how do you do that? In my mind, is always about like doing things that have nothing to do with it. Like definitely avoid Googling it or researching it and reading up about it, but just like do things as much as you can that has nothing to do with it. And then, of course, the set it and forget it applies to everyone, I believe, when it comes to sleep. So a proper lady, I hope that helped. And please stay in touch. Okay. So, oh yeah, there was another thing I wanted to talk about here, which was a comment from Produceman. Let's see, where is it? Maybe it's here. Okay, here it is, I think. Here it is, exactly. So this is a comment from Produceman 13, 2 days ago, and he said the following. I think Produceman has started implementing some of the cognitive behavioral therapy techniques here, and he says, I still only sleep a few hours, but that's better than nothing. I feel a little bit more tired at bedtime and can get to sleep after starting CBT, but usually have to wake up and pee a lot, even if I don't drink much water before. And so, firstly, I want to say to Produceman and everybody else there, this is amazing news. Like, when somebody starts using, it's like spending less time in bed, shifting attention, set it and forget it, and feels like I sleep a few hours, it's better than nothing. That's an improvement. I feel a little bit more tired and can get to sleep a little easier. Those things seem like maybe they're not a huge leap forward, but they are. They are the kind of the little steps that should like really, you should like really pay attention to that, like affirm them, play it up, give yourself confidence. And that's what I talked about yesterday, actually, the second tailwind. Like the more you affirm positives, even the little ones, the better you'll get. Like you'll get that real push forward. Now, that was actually not what I wanted to really bring up here, which was I have to wake up and pee a lot, even if I don't drink much water before. And this is the third time I hear that. And the first time it was on this channel, somebody times per night they were up peeing, and then they started using the techniques I was talking about here, and as they were sleeping better, they didn't need to pee at all, which shows us that peeing a lot is some type of like anxiety symptom. you know. I heard the same thing from a patient in clinic. He was like, he couldn't explain, like, I have to pee like 20 times in the night. I don't understand it. And now the third time I'm hearing it is here from Produceman. So I think it's maybe another one of those with the sudden awakening, that once you start talking about it, a lot of people are like, yeah, that happened to me too. So might do another special video on that one, but that's something I really want to point out here. And Produceman, thanks for all the support, all your comments, and I believe you do really, really well. Now, this one I've been looking forward to talking about. This is a great question from Sabrine. All right, let's read it. This is actually a comment on Insomnia Insight number 1. So it seems like Sabrine really went back to the first, and it's really cool starting from the beginning. Anyway, when you have severe insomnia, you're pretty sleepy all the time. Anyway, so the sleep drive is already quite strong. Why then does this sleep drive not translate into sleep, whereas the sleep drive produced by sleep restriction would be considered more effective? There's so much to talk about here, so much to talk about. But I think, one of the things that I believe is the true answer to this is the following. So a little bit of background for anybody that's not familiar with the terminology here, which, by the way, Sabrine is understanding perfectly. That's really cool. So sleep drive is kind of the thing that makes us sleepy, that builds during the day. So the longer we're awake, the more sleepiness we produce, like stronger sleep drive you have, and that is what makes us fall asleep and stay asleep. Now the question here is like, okay, well, if you have insomnia and you're up all the time, you sleep very little, wouldn't that create a strong sleep drive that helps you sleep? If that was true, then insomnia would become like self-regulatory. You sleep poorly, and then builds up a sleep drive, and then you sleep well, and then you wouldn't have a problem, which is kind of true sometimes. A lot of people describe this kind of yo-yo, like I sleep almost nothing for a night, then I sleep good for a night, then I sleep. That's a classic example of, yes, sleep drive does build up when you have trouble sleeping, and then it can help you the following night. But what happens a lot with people with trouble sleeping is that it is not a kind of sustained buildup of sleep drive. It is rather this kind of fragmented thing that happens at night, meaning somebody goes to bed at 10, falls asleep at 11, wakes up again at 3, falls asleep at 5, and then wakes up at 6, and then finally sleeps another hour from 7 to 8. So you see in this example that the sleep drive that builds up from wakefulness between, let's say, 3 and 5 is then kind of dissipated because you sleep again from 5 to 6, and then you're up and you get a little bit more sleep drive, and then you sleep a little bit more in the morning. So this is kind of a classic insomnia pattern where somebody spends actually a lot of time in bed, doesn't sleep much of it, but has this in and out of sleep thing. So sleep drive is not actually built up that effectively. And I think most importantly, the final wake up time often happens late. The final wake up time often is like 7 or 8. And then somebody will say like, well, but I didn't sleep at all before that. Still, like the sleep drive kind of starts building from that final wake up time. And if the final wake up time is pretty late, then you will not be ready to sleep at, let's say, 11 p.m. or midnight, So that, I believe, is one really important reason. And another one, which I think I've been thinking a lot about in a little bit different context, but it is this one that, switching gear a little bit, like talking about fatigue. A lot of people feel like they're just tired during the day, fatigued. And then I tell them, this is very common in clinic. I tell them, well, I think it's important actually to be active during the day. When you're active, you actually feel less fatigued. And then people may go, well, I'm very busy. I have this job where I'm always on my toes. That's different. Or by the way, my personal experience, having small kids, like toddlers, I feel like I was busy taking care of them was really tiring, always chasing them and like carrying them and like that feels like a lot of work, but it doesn't make you feel better. Chasing your kids or kind of like being on your toes and your job, it doesn't make you feel better. It's not that kind of like nice activity, like taking a walk. It's the same thing again with that kind of fragmented wakefulness that happens during the night. It's not nice wakefulness. It's not quality wakefulness. So I think that's another reason why it doesn't bring that nice sleep drive. So I hope that answered your question, Sabrine, which was a really good one. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy answering every question, but this one was, a little bit different, very cool one. All right, and I think we will. I don't think there was more from the comment section. Paul H has started CBT with a sleep specialist. You can do it, Paul. All right. So that said, let us move to our emails, and let's start with this one. So this is an email from oh, that's the wrong one. We have an email from Scott. That was the wrong Scott. Let's actually go to the right Scott, if we will, and answer his question. So this came in actually very recently, just 3 hours ago, from Scott, and he said the following: Hi, Daniel. No one talks about the guys and gals who don't recover using CBTi. I've attempted CBTi at least a couple of times, and I certainly saw some short-term improvements, but did not recover. I want off sleeping pills. I would really like a life without them. Last time I attempted to get off them, I had mixed results and was doing my best to hang in there, but come late November, I had 5 nights in a row with no sleep, and the problem is my psychological state starts to unravel. I get depressed and really out of sorts to the point where I had no choice but to get back on the pills. Is there a better way to break the cycle or use medicine on a very short-term basis to try to keep momentum with CBTi so I don't have to keep mounting recovery efforts? I love your program and understand why you and others harp on the benefits of CBTi, but I know there are many more people than just me who feel as though they've been committed to CBTi and not been able to recover. I would like to find a way to stick with it without having to revert back to sleeping pills. I totally feel your frustration here, Scott, and my thoughts reading this are that there are two things going on. One is the goal of just getting past insomnia, and the other one is getting not taking sleeping pills. And it's very possible that kind of one goal, it could be sabotaging the other. Meaning, when let me actually start with something that happened in clinic the other day. I had a patient, and let me backtrack even more. I don't prescribe any sleep medications, and anyone who's tuning into my videos know why, because I believe they erode sleep confidence. They take away your confidence in yourself, and I just cannot get myself to do that. I don't want to hurt anybody, so I don't do that. However, I see people that have had a prescription from somebody else, and what I feel is that for a patient that doesn't feel like they are very dependent on their medication, that feel like, yeah, I take it, but it's not really doing that much for me, I feel like they can actually taper off over a longer period of time. There's no urgency because their sleep confidence is not that hurt. However, if somebody's like, I have to have this medication, I just cannot sleep without it, that person really should not take medications because their sleep confidence is just really shattered, right? So I've had this, it's happened to me that I've told that first category, people that I feel like they're doing pretty well, that, isn't there no urgency? I don't renew or prescribe medications, but you can continue taking it and kind of taper off on your own, or use me for help. Then what often happens is that somebody comes back and said, no, that didn't work. I tried. And when the people say that, I realize that, it's very hard to get off medications on your own, because what happens is the following. You go, okay, this is it. I'm going to give this my best shot. I'm going to try to not take the medication. And then, you go to bed and you're like, okay, I hope this works. Let's see. And then inevitably that kind of self-monitoring starts. Like, okay, I've been here for quite a long time. I think I've been here 30 minutes. We'll see. I'm going to hang in there. And I've been an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and finally fall asleep, wake up again. Like, my gosh, that was a terrible night. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going. But the thing that happens is that as the days go by, you're sleeping less and less, and in the kind of like the thought of taking the medication again, like it becomes more and more appealing. Like, I can't do this much longer, but I'm going to try a little more, but maybe, and then finally after 5 days, it's like, that's it. I'm taking the medication again. Now what's happening is, subconsciously or not, it's like the decision making, the decision whether to take the medication or not, is what drives this rebound insomnia that happens when you don't take medication. It's the self-monitoring, the wondering, should I take it? Should I take half of it? Should I take it tomorrow? Can I ever come off of it? What if, what that? That drives insomnia. So for somebody that wants to come off medication, it has to be, there has to be no medications like available, or it has to be like a complete decision to like, I'm going to come off it and not question that. That I believe that is the only way, because if you're kind of trying, I'm going to make it a trial, I'm going to see if I can come off of it. That the trying part is going to feed the insomnia. So I think that makes it, that's a very important kind of general message there. And now going back to like, why hasn't CBTi worked? It could be because somebody like yourself, Scott, may have been having that dual goal of like sleeping better and come off medication, and the attempt of like trying to come off medication may have sabotaged it, because that self-monitoring happens when you try to come off. Now, another, I think, point I want to make was that we don't talk about, like, people often ask like, what if CBTi doesn't work for me? What should I do next? And I want to be very mindful of what I'm saying here, but my belief is that if you spend less time in bed and you're shifting attention away from sleep, it is foolproof. Like, it is gonna work. I feel like when somebody has like, it doesn't work for me, it's either because somebody has like the insomnia identity, which very few of my viewers here, I'm sure, have. But the people with that the insomnia identity are people that actually like having insomnia. They like to talk about it, get attention, and they want to be that person who can't sleep in their community, within their friends, their online community, whatever it is. And you find a lot of those people on like Reddit or Facebook groups, and they actually don't want CBTi to work. So that's one category for whom it doesn't work. Another category for whom CBTi doesn't work, and this is the most common one, are people that just like cannot let go. Keep monitoring, keep thinking about sleep, keep like wondering, can't like shift the attention away from it. Sometimes, very, very anxious and just can't stop thinking about it. Sometimes more in a kind of more subdued, like a little bit like sad fashion, like, but still can't let go of the attention. So the reason I don't talk so much about like that, Scott, is because I totally believe in it. I believe it is like, like diet and exercise for weight loss. Like, if you can do it, you will sleep better. And so one last thing is like, I believe the CBTi methods work really well if somebody is taking medication, same dose every night, not questioning it, like, I'm just going to take it, until they have such a strong sleep confidence that they can start taking it off. And to build that confidence, you need to know that medications aren't making you sleep, and they can just take away like something like they can be sedating, so they can take away some anxiety, stress that is blocking sleep, but they cannot produce sleep. So all sleep that ever happens, all sleep is natural. Every single minute, second, hour of sleep that anybody ever got is natural, is their own sleep. It's not produced by any medication. That's so important to know, because that can build your sleep drive, build your sleep confidence, I want to say. So, and by the way, self-love is super important. You may have tried CBTi 5 times. The 6th time may be the silver bullet. That may be the time you do it. And kind of like being hard on yourself. Like, I've tried, it haven't worked for me. I feel like I'm hopeless. No. It's like, you try. That's awesome, and you can do it again. And the final thing here, sometimes it's hard to do it alone. I don't know what your story is, Scott, but sometimes having like whether it is like call or Martin Weed. I strongly recommend Martin Weed, super nice guy. Or it is a social worker or a PA or anybody that has the knowledge and can guide you and hold you accountable, that could be maybe what you need. So Scott, hang in there. Do it. You'll get better. You will get better. So with that said, let us go to let's go back here to a question from Vince. And this came in 3 days ago. And Vince said the following: "Good day, Daniel. I have a weird question. As you know, I've followed my sleep window for 8 days perfectly. But on day 9, I was watching TV in the afternoon, and I accidentally slept for an hour. My question is, does my count of the number of days of sleep restriction will come back to day 1 or restart day 1? Here's the thing. If somebody's doing their sleep window, spending less time in bed, and they keep going, the goal with that really is to build sleep confidence, in my opinion. It's to start showing yourself that you can sleep. There's nothing wrong with you. That's the important thing. If somebody takes a 1-hour nap one day and then goes back to their sleep window, I don't think that's a problem at all. Really, it doesn't really matter. Maybe that person will sleep a little less the following night, but if they keep going back to sleep, it doesn't matter at all. But the other point is that for Vince, so when Vince started talking to me a month ago, maybe, it was the TV. It was kind of, always asking about what should I do with the TV. And now I'm not asking about the TV. I'm super excited that Vince is not asking about the TV. Super excited that Vince played basketball for 2 hours. I'm super excited that Vince has shown previously that he understands the concept of sleep efforts. Now I think what's happening, Vince, is that you're counting how many numbers you've done your sleep window, anticipating that at a certain number, like day 21 or day 22 or maybe day 35, you're gonna kind of sleep better. I think the more you can let go of that, because this is part of forget it. The more you can let go of counting days and just set it and forget it, the better. The sooner you're gonna get better. That was just another, I think, felt it was an important comment. Vince, hang in there. I think you're doing well. I think you're doing really, really well from what I'm hearing. Okay, Anita, let's read this. This came in 1 day ago. Oh yeah, this is Anita from Finland, I believe, isn't it? Anyway. Hi, Daniel. For some reason, I didn't realize that you did reply to me in podcast pod 49, and at first I thought you missed it. I apologize for that. No worries. I'm sorry. I didn't let you know that. I've now found it, and I want to thank you for your helpful reply insights. I saw it earlier. What you said about me being in a vulnerable state when it comes to sleep is exactly right. And I remember that Anita had been doing pretty well during episodes, but then when there was a stressor, kind of had insomnia again and hadn't really built sleep confidence, something like that. My sleep confidence is by now is really low, especially considering how much I always worry about the effect of changing my environment, tricky situation on my sleep. Additionally, these medications that I've been prescribed only made me feel like there's something really wrong with me and I need to take medications in order to sleep. I know that is not true, since I've slept many days in a row without medications. This is super important stuff here. Super important stuff. Often medications, when you prescribe medication, you think that the implied message is that there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And also, Anita knows she can sleep without medications. Super important. Now, I completely quit ketamine about 2 months ago, but I've been taking temazepam and other hypnotics on and off while changing environments constantly. These medications don't really help much. When I get some sleep on them, most times I feel like it still wasn't quality sleep. So far, I didn't start with CBTi, as I told myself, now I really can't be without any sleep, or now I've been sleeping a bit better, so I don't want to ruin that, right? But after several days, I still end up sleeping bad, taking medications, etc. So I finally decided to start with bedtime restriction. Cool. Last night was the first one after limiting my time in bed to only 6 hours. I didn't get any restorative sleep, and it felt like I just laid in bed, not sleeping, but that's mostly how my sleep has been during the past several weeks anyway. When I'm in bed, awake, I don't get frustrated about it, and I just try not to react. I hope to improve my sleep confidence at some point, but I'm prepared for a long journey. I try to keep a sleep journal nap. It's really difficult to estimate the time when I fall asleep, how many times I wake up during my sleep, and how long I was awake during those times. Would you have any tips for this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Firstly, I'm extremely excited reading this, Anita. I'm super happy. The tone of this, like the motivation, all that. Awesome. Now, I think the app you're using seems to be asking you what time you fall asleep, how many times you wake up, etc. And my feeling is that sleep diaries can be kind of a double-edged sword. Sleep diaries are good for accountability, to make sure you are getting out of bed at the same time, that you're not sleeping during the day. But they can also lead to kind of more obsessing about sleep. If you're thinking about like, oh, what time did I go to bed? How many times did I wake up? How much, et cetera, et cetera. I think a great sleep diary is one that asks you to keep track of like what time you get up in the morning, and make sure like you're not sleeping during the day, and that you don't go to bed too early. And I think a piece of paper is really good for that. I think a piece of paper is perfect. I know, by the way, if you go back to my earliest videos, I show you how to calculate sleep efficiency. I have come to believe that that's not important at all. I think just a little diary where you keep track of, again, what time you get up, make sure you don't sleep during the day, don't get a bit too early. That's all you need. By the way, I think another great thing for a sleep diary is like, did I do anything for fun today? Did I do anything for enjoyment? Like, what did I do today that was fun? And if you feel like I've been tired, I'm not doing much for fun, you have to do something fun. You have to do something fun every day and hold yourself accountable for that. Super important. But yeah, Anita, just stay in touch. Please let us know how things go. I'm rooting for you. All right. That was from Anita. Now, Megan. This is a question that came in 2 days ago from Megan. Hi, Daniel. My name is Megan, and I've had trouble sleeping a good portion of my life. I just found your podcast a few days ago, and I can't get enough. I'm happy. I'm discovering how messed up my ideas about sleep have been so for many years. Guess what? Oh my God, you're setting me up on a tangent here, but it is not your fault. It is the sleep world that is messed up. Like, everything you read about sleep is just completely wrong. It's always about like, you have to get enough sleep, like it's so important, like go to bed early, blah, blah, blah. Then your ideas get messed up. Oh. Anyway, here is my story in question. I'm a middle school teacher and mother to 2 young children. I've taken Lunesta on and off for the last 11 years. It has always worked. Always, until the first day of school this year. The night before our first day, I couldn't sleep at all, even with taking 3 times the amount of Lunesta I normally take throughout the night. The next day, I felt awful, and that night started getting a fever. I was horribly sick for the next week and had to take off a few of the first days of school and had lingering symptoms the next few weeks. I've heard that lack of sleep weakens the immune system, so this is one of the biggest factors that contributes to my fear of not getting enough sleep. I don't have many fears that insomnia will cause me to die early or develop diabetes. My fear is that I'll catch a bug that prevents me from doing my job, taking care of my kids for a few days. Do you have any advice for combating this fear? Yes, I absolutely do. Firstly, I want to comment on the Lunesta thing, which, I know you're not asking about this, Megan, but for anybody else that's tuning in here, I just made a video, was it yesterday, about how why it seems that medications just all of a sudden just stop working. It is because they actually were never working, meaning medications cannot make you sleep, but if they kind of make you kind of sedated and you start falling asleep, then it appears that way. And that's why when there's some stressor and you suddenly don't sleep, it's like, whoa, it's not working, but it never was. It's just that kind of the stress overpowers the kind of sedating effect of the medication. So now it seems like it's just stopped working. Anyway, and by the way, one more thing, super important, is when somebody like yourself's taken some medication for 11 years and always worked, guess what? You always worked. Your own sleep system always worked. You produced every minute of the sleep you had. Let that grow your sleep confidence. Know that. Know that. All right. Now, firstly, okay, we've all heard that, or a lot of us have heard that, okay, if you don't get enough sleep, it's gonna, weaken How do we know that? Well, we don't, because the only way to prove that insomnia causes a weakening of the immune system would be to take, like, hundreds of people and produce insomnia in some of them, not produce insomnia in some of them, and follow them up prospectively and see who gets the most illnesses, which has never been done and will never happen, because you can't do that. You can't produce insomnia. So it is a belief. There can be like other pieces of evidence suggesting that it weakens your immune system, but we cannot know that. There's no way to know that. And so that's one thing. It's not known at all. It's definitely not known. Short sleep insomnia has never been shown to cause any sleep problems. Now, so that's kind of the CBT approach here, like finding evidence for and against a belief. And the belief here is that insomnia causes a weakened immune system. Now, another approach, which I think honestly is a better one, is kind of the ACT approach, or the kind of, what do I call it? I don't know. That's another approach, which is to realize that the truth cannot be found out. Like, nobody's going to do that study that finds the truth. So it's always going to be like, we're never going to know, which puts you in this position that kind of finding the truth is almost, it's not a dead end. It's kind of like a rabbit hole, because you find evidence. Oh, maybe this, I heard that. What is it really? Is it true? Is it not true? So a better approach is to just be like, I cannot know that is true or not. And knowing it, whether I know that or not, doesn't actually matter, because where's that going to lead me? If you believe, it doesn't help you to kind of look for the truth there. So I think it's kind of like the existential questions, like, is there a God? Like, what happens after we die? What's the meaning of life? It can seem like looking for the answer is meaningful. You talk to people, but for most of us, it becomes like we accept that there was no answer and we go on with our lives and live happily ever after, even though we didn't find the answer. Now, okay, so that was kind of long-winded, but I hope that was helpful. But another one that I think is important here is to kind of prove to yourself that is not true, in a way that, find that time when you slept good and you had a cold. That's one way. Find that time when you slept good and had a cold. That proves that you can get a cold even if you sleep well, right? And find that other time when you slept very little and you didn't get a cold. That's proof that, even if you sleep little, it doesn't mean you have to get sick. And then finally, maybe another important thing is that, there's definitely no evidence that insomnia weakens the immune system to a point where you can, get really sick and die. Not at all. What people, I think what I thought when I read this first was that it weakens the immune system, so you get a cold, from one of the kids, and you can't work. Well, if that's the worry, then the outcome is not that terrible. You'll get over the cold, and so forth. So I thought that was rambling here, but I hope this was helpful, Megan. And I believe there's nothing to fear, absolutely nothing to fear. And I hope you will do really well, Megan. Stay in touch, and thanks for all the encouragement. And with that said, let us move on to a question from Linda. And this is, I think it's an important one. The title of her email is Sleep Tracking Apps. Daniel, thanks for the reply on Monday. Do you think that sleep tracking apps such as NapBot or AutoSleep are accurate for tracking the transition into sleep/sleep interruptions? I've read mixed reviews about these apps, but I really would like to have something to track my sleep progression without having to do an overnight sleep study. I know a lot of these apps track sleep progression based on heart rate. Just wondering if this is an accurate measure of how sleep progression, as opposed to using an app that measures brain waves, as there are not that many apps out there for measuring brain waves. Just curious if these sleep tracking apps would help me accurately measure the moments that I am in sleep and the moments when I suddenly alertness happens, as these sleep tracking apps are based on heart rate. Okay, so the first question there, do you think they're accurate for tracking transition sleep interruptions? Not at all. I think, even using EEG, it's oftentimes it's hard to tell the exact moment somebody fell asleep. It's impossible It's based on 30-second windows, and when the majority of a 30-second window you look at is like sleep or so, then you call it falling asleep, but it's so I don't think that's accurate at all. But I think a more important point here is the following: like a lot of my patients, that have trouble sleeping, they tell me, and then I started tracking my sleep, and I'm like, why did you do that? How did you think tracking your sleep was going to help you? And a lot of people are like, I don't know, it just felt like a good thing to do. And I believe that it's logical. When you have a problem, you want to kind of get hold of it, like get some control, like try to track it. But the reality is with insomnia is like you want to go in the complete opposite direction. You want to spend less attention on sleep. You want to shift your attention away from it. So I feel like 99 times of 100, tracking your sleep in any type of way is not good. And by the way, I think when this happens, like when people have the sudden awakening, if you want to track it, then you can just track it by recall. Did it happen or not? But I think it's probably better not to track it and just track how are you feeling? Are you happy? How's your day? And then you shift your attention completely away from these events. I think that is really helpful. And oh my gosh, there was like another thing I wanted to say here, which trackers. Yeah, I can't forget. I feel like there was a third thing I wanted to say, Linda, but that slipped my mind. I hope this is helpful to you, Linda, and keep in touch. Let us know how you do. Oh yeah. Now I remember. I want to say like 99 times out of 100. Like, so what's the one time out of 100 when I feel like using a tracker could actually be helpful? It is for somebody who feels that they're almost sleeping nothing at all, right? And who feels that if they knew that they slept a little more than they think, if they felt that would be reassuring, then I think maybe you can use a sleep tracker. If somebody's like, I sleep like 1 hour a night, and feels like if I knew I slept 4 hours a night, then and I would believe my tracker, then I think it's okay to use it. All right. So, Kamal, I think this is probably the last question. Hi, Daniel. I recently stumbled on your videos and have subscribed. Your videos are so helpful. Thanks for the support, Kamal. I have a question. I have been struggling with adrenal insufficiency and possible fibro for 2 years. My first symptom was insomnia. I experience hypnic jerks, sometimes flashes of light, feeling that I'm falling, and it jolts me awake. I notice if I take supplements to help with the adrenals, the jerks increase. It's like I'm stuck in this position that if I take things to make me feel better during the day, even deep repose, the jerks increase and the insomnia worse. At this point, I might take a tiny piece of zopiclone, less than 0.5 milligrams, just to quiet the jerks. I try to avoid this when the jerks quiet down. For the most part, I am up multiple times a night. My question is around the jerks and the stress of sleep restriction possibly causing more jerks. I've started the first step of avoiding discussing and giving insomnia so much attention. I think I understand the question as my question is around could the stress of kind of like getting less sleep be causing more jerks? And okay, so I believe the answer to this is the following: that the jerks are really, in my opinion, my belief is that they're caused by hyperarousal, the kind of hyper awareness, and hyperarousal I describe it as that kind of like when imagine if you're, kind of the state of your brain is in like let's use a car analogy here. If drive is kind of like normal, kind of like you're just going forward, normal state, and then park is like sleep, and then turbo is like hyperarousal, then hyperarousal is kind of like turbo. Everything's moving fast. You're super aware of what's happening. You hear things, you see things, like you're super aware. That's hyperarousal. And when in that hyperarousal, when you're about to fall asleep, it kind of causes this awareness of falling asleep, and then you jolt out of sleep. That's the hyperarousal. Now, hyperarousal could be kind of increased by many things, and one is I don't feel like it's a direct effect of sleeping less, like sleep restriction or sleep deprivation, but if you slept very little and then you become even more worried about that could be increasing hyperarousal and causing more jerks. If you're taking supplements and also kind of monitoring how they will affect the jerks, that could help. That could increase hyperarousals too. If you're taking like a supplement and you're thinking, "Ooh, I wonder how this will affect the jerks," that can increase hyperarousal as well. So those are my thoughts there. I think you're definitely on a good track here. Like I'm not discussing it with people. I'm not giving it so much attention. And I totally believe that these jerks, sleep transition events, are like attention driven. The less attention they get, the less they will happen. So Kamal, thanks for the support. I hope I answered this question in a way that was helpful to you and anybody else that's tuning in. I wanna thank Christina Reese for sending me a comment live, and that it's amazing. Christina was on, like, again, I think it was Xanax, and kind of in a desperate situation a couple of weeks ago, and is now sleeping well without any medication. So that said, I will end here. Thanks so much for all the questions, and I will be back tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.